This is WOOL-FM. The Andrew Collins Trio is coming to play Stone Church Arts here in Bellows Falls on March 10th. I'm going to play you the tasty title track from their current album, And It Was Good. It gets some really nice help from a string quartet. And then we're going to be back. We're going to have a chat with the trio's namesake, Andrew Collins himself. Well done, Mr. Collins.
Thank you very much.
In case you tuned in during that track, that was the Andrew Collins Trio, and they are going to be here in Bellows Falls March 10th at Stone Church Arts. Doors at 7:30. Tickets and more information online at stonechurcharts.org. And I will say that again later, so get your pencils out. But right now, we've got Andrew Collins from the Andrew Collins Trio on the line. Thanks for taking some time to talk with us.
Well, thank you for having me, Mark. Really looking forward to coming there.
You guys are kind of a north-of-the-border multi-instrumentalist string band supergroup, so brag up the band a little bit.
Okay, well, it's comprised of myself and Mike Mezzatesta. His name's a mouthful, and he is a phenomenal musician, plays guitar, mandolin, fiddle, mandola, pretty much any string instrument you put in front of him, he can play. And James McElhaney, who's doing a bunch of harmony singing and bass playing and even a little bit of mando cello. And my name's Andrew, and I play mandolin, fiddle, some guitar, mando cello, some mandola, and do a lot of singing as well in the show. And we kind of, we all play a bunch of different styles of music, bluegrass, jazz, classical, Celtic stuff. And I, draw from all these different traditions in my composing and writing. And we like to throw in a bunch of vocal tunes, some folk and rock influences in there as well. And yeah, it's an eclectic evening of musical weirdness.
And when you list out that long list of instruments, you guys actually drag all that stuff out.
We really do, which makes for air travel being quite chaotic. Yeah, we travel with 9 instruments.
On stage, you kind of veer, as you indicated, all over the place, really.
Definitely. Yeah, we like to move around. When I first started playing this kind of music, I really thought of just being like an instrumental band, but I loved my heroes like Mike Marshall and Daryl Anger and David Grisman and Bela Fleck, Tony Rice, and all these guys that were taking their formidable chops on their instruments that they got through playing bluegrass and exploring all these other styles of music. That's what got me interested in the mandolin in the first place, and it keeps a show interesting when you don't know what's coming next.
You yourself, you've had so many nominations and wins for Junos and Canadian Folk Music Awards and stuff going back to 2005. Well, Canada's a really big place with a lot of really good talent, and those nods, they're big deals.
Yeah, well, it's definitely nice to know that the music is appreciated. I think also, hopefully it's not just about being technical, but it is a really demanding music to be drawing from all these different styles. And I think when people hear it, they appreciate that. And, there aren't a lot of bands doing this, so we have that opportunity to stand out by being unique. In Canada, it's really an obscurity. And so I'd say we benefit from that. And we also have to work at educating an audience that this music exists. People don't know it exists, so they kind of have to trust that they're going to hear something that they like to come out and see us for the first time.
You've got a little bit of a head start around here.
Yeah, I think so. And this is really our first year touring in the U.S. with the trio, for sure. It is for me. So it's really nice to come and play to people that know where our influences are from. And we don't sound like Bela Fleck or like anyone else, I don't think. I think we still end up with a personal sound because the whole thing is about trying to create and find new sounds and new ways to say things.
It might be worth mentioning, because some people are going to recognize these names, that you've also played with Creaking String Quartet and the Foggy Hogtown Boys.
Yeah, Creaking Tree String Quartet was the first band that I played in that was doing this kind of music. And we did 4 albums and had a good run, and eventually we took a little bit of a hiatus, and everyone, including myself, started getting busy with other things. Mm-hmm. And then we just kind of all got too busy to be able to start it back up again. And then that's actually how the Andrew Collins Trio was born, out of I didn't want to stop playing this kind of music, so it seemed like the next logical step was to start an ensemble of my own doing it.
Well, sure, people grow and things change and evolution happens.
Exactly. Can't stop it.
Rumor has it that you're working on what sounds like a really cool new album, and I want to get to that. But first, let's talk about this current one, And It Was Good.
All right. Yeah. So I had done many albums of instrumental music over the years that, there's no theme connecting the music or any real meaning behind the music. And I wanted to try and up my game a little bit and challenge myself to write something that had a little bit more meaning. So I came up with the idea of writing a 7 days of creation acoustic tale. And so that's what I did. You mentioned the string quartet. Some of Canada's best string players, 3 members are actually members of the Fretless. That's Trent Freeman, Ben Plotnick, and Eric Wright. And my longtime musical compadre, John Showman, who was also a member of Creaking Tree String Quartet, Foggy Hogtown Boys, and now the Lonesome Ace String Band. I dubbed them the Phantasmagoria String Quartet. Phantasmagoria, I discovered, means like a dream state, always changing, like in a dream state, and it really suits what they do.
Some people have trotted out the term chamber grass. Does that drive you nuts?
You know, my heroes that first got me into this, they call it new acoustic music, but that, to people that have no idea what that means, it's a really vague term, which I also like. Chamber grass, this is like a modern chamber music to me. There's a lot of improvising, and that's a huge part of it, but there's also a lot of arranged and composed parts going on as well. So it really is kind of like a modern chamber music, but with roots of bluegrass music as the foundation. I like it better than newgrass only because newgrass makes me think of Newgrass Revival specifically, which I don't think we sound like at all. I feel like every time I try to describe this music, I fail at it. So I love the fact that with bluegrass music, people ask you, oh, what kind of music do you play? You can say, oh, bluegrass or Celtic or swing music. So far, I think for people that have no idea what music we're playing, chambergrass at least gets you closer.
Out on YouTube, there is a clip of the three of you guys kind of hanging out in a living room, and you bust out this Bach concerto, and I'm not really a classical guy, but holy cow, that's good.
Yeah, Bach is one of my heroes, and how his music, that Baroque music, sounds on the mandolin family instruments, hearing all the notes ring, like it sounds almost harpsichordish with the plucked instruments and hearing those notes ring on top of each other. So I'm glad you like it. That's something that I love to play.
Going back to the album again for a sec, regardless of the inspiration for it, you could have changed the titles and nobody would have known.
Yes, that's where I'm coming from. It's not meant to be a religious work. I mean, I've had people come to me in shows previously and ask me like these random things like, oh, when you played that tune, were you thinking of a green tractor in a field? Because that's what I saw. And like it was really arbitrary stuff that had nothing to do with what I was thinking about when I wrote it. So at least I feel like people can know what I was thinking when writing the tunes.
It was recorded live in the studio, I understand.
That's right. The trio rehearsed our stuff in the months leading up to it, and I composed these string quartet parts to be accompaniment to the trio, as opposed to, like, we don't travel around with a string quartet. So it was really important to me to be able to play this music as the trio.
The upcoming ambitious album project that I alluded to, it's called Tongue and Groove, from what I hear, and that title cracked me up when I figured it out.
I'm glad. After doing this, like, really intense composing project, quite a lot of work went into the last album. My first thought was I wanted to go the opposite extreme and just capture the trio doing our roots sort of thing and coming back to more simple tune writing. And I remembered an idea that I had many years ago before the trio existed of doing an album of all vocal stuff, drawing from all these different styles. So some honky-tonk music, some jazz, all these different influences. I was like, oh, maybe we'll do this for the next project. And I'm like, yeah, but we're also kind of an instrumental band, and that's what people kind of are expecting. So let's do 2 albums at once. And that's what we're doing. So what was going to be a real simple thing has become yet another huge undertaking. We're almost finished the recording part, and then I'll be getting to mixing in the next week. Tongue being the vocal album and Groove being the all-instrumental album. You know, I love the symbolism of them being interlocked with each other, and being a little tongue-in-cheek as well. And so that's the next project. We're pretty excited about it.
You touched on this a little bit. You said you're just about going to get into the mixing phase for Tongue and Groove. When you're not on the road, you're a studio rat.
Yep, that's right. I've got a recording studio in Toronto, and I love to be able to do my own stuff, but I also really enjoy producing and recording other bands. Toronto has a really great acoustic music scene. We're really lucky here to have so many great musicians.
So how does the studio guy influence the live guy and vice versa?
Well, I think that the studio guy, that's a good question. I've never been asked that. I love thinking of things in their parts and as a whole at the same time, like the microcosm and the macrocosm and the relationship of the two. Trying to hear the sound of the instruments as best they can. I think they all go hand in hand, and it's something that I really love, which I really do love the production and the problem solving that's involved with that.
And I'm guessing that at some point you must have shown up to a gig where they trotted out Radio Shack highballs and you said, screw it, we're bringing Neumann's.
Yeah. Early on, I discovered the need to be playing with not just good mics, because there are great mics that are not great for all applications, but the microphones that we play with are, to me, the perfect microphone for mandolin, like for these string instruments. And we don't use monitors when we're on stage. We just like to hear the house so we can mix ourselves and do kind of the old school bluegrass thing with a couple extra microphones so that, we can really play as comfortably as we can. It's nice to be able to play your instrument light when you want to and still have it be as loud as you need it to be. And, pickups they still don't capture that sound, and they don't capture the dynamics that you can get when you're playing with a good condenser microphone.
What would you say, both as the studio guy and the live guy, what would you say to somebody thinking about getting a $50 USB mic for their laptop to record their first thing or their next big hit? What would you say to them?
I'm of two minds. I really think people underestimate how important it is, if you're trying to be professional, to have good sound. But at the same time, if you're a hobbyist and you just want to capture stuff, it's great to have whatever to work with and just be able to play around with it. But if you're trying to be in a professional world, the album has to look and sound like a professional piece of work. Everyone that you're trying to reach out to with your album, which is a calling card of your work, they get hundreds of albums a year to listen to. And as important as the material is, the sound quality and obvious care and attention to detail has to be there.
Glyn Johns came to our little village a couple of years ago to talk about, his role in recording all that classic rock stuff way back in the day. And things, it's easy now to look back and say, oh man, they only had 8 tracks. They had, 3 mics on the kit. But the state of the art changes. That was state of the art.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because when I say the sound quality is so important, I'm instantly contradicting myself in my mind, thinking about, I remember when I was first getting into this music, and one of my bandmates in the Foggy Hogtown Boys, who's a friend from high school, Chris Cool, he's the person that introduced me to this music in the first place. And we used to spend hours upon hours just getting together and sitting and listening to music, like barely even talking, except for when the album was over and we talked about what we heard or what we're going to listen to next. And I remember we'd spend a lot of time going up to his cottage, and I had this really crappy plastic hi-fi system that I gave him to put up at his cottage so we could listen to vinyl up there. And, we're listening to the Stanley Brothers album, really early one, that would have also been recorded on 2 microphones live. The sound quality was not great, particularly on this real lo-fi system. Still, the feeling and the beauty of the music still managed to speak through all that working against it. So on one hand, I'm thinking how important it is for the quality to be as great as possible, but when you're capturing magic, it still speaks through. There you go.
Good luck, everybody.
Yeah. Try and have magic. That's the first thing.
And that goes back to you recorded the current album live. You were getting the magic.
That's right. And working with musicians that were really great and prepared, and hopefully the material supports that as well.
We've been talking with Andrew Collins here on Black Sheep Radio from the Andrew Collins Trio. They are coming to Stone Church Arts here in Bellows Falls on March 10th. StoneChurchArts.org, or, pop over there and talk to Bo. This is going to be a good show.
I can't wait for it myself.
Let's go out on another track. It can be from the current one or older stuff. Your choice. What should we play?
Play off the new album. Let's go a little weird. Play Seed of Its Own Kind on the new album.
See you soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.